This is Simon having to explain for the 6th time in 15 hours to BMW Mercy Service what has happened to his bike.
I wasn't familiar with a BMW.
6 times.
Ow, said Henry's cat.
Dropped it. Too tight to turn on reverse.
Are you alright?
Yeah, I'm cool.
Huh? Sorry, bend over the grass into it, mate.
Mercy. Mercy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, right, it's on side stand now. Very stable. So I'll talk you through what actually happened. We pulled up at the toll there, and in the middle of the tolls, as you come into Monte Carlo, all the cars that pull up are dumping fluid right slap bang in the middle of those areas, where of course if you're in the middle of the lane you would go through in a motorbike getting it on your tyres. By the time you pull out of most tolls within a few hundred feet, you've got rid of anything that's on your tyre, but naturally if you've put your feet down you've managed to get some crap on your boot, and in those circumstances, you can see from the image, Simon's actually trodden in oil or radiator fluid or diesel, combination of probably a number of things. And as we pull up you'll see he performs an uphill reversing manoeuvre and puts his right foot down. It was very hot. The floor was, quite shiny, probably as a result. I know it sounds daft, but it wasn't the greatest of surfaces anyway. And the bike gave way, and of course, we all drop bikes. We've all done it. I've dropped one on the driveway cleaning it, trying to manoeuvre it on and off of a sort of rear stand. So it's easily done. And on a bike like this, you have to be exceptionally cautious, particularly if it's fully loaded and the panniers are heavy. They're not light bikes. They're, plus 300 kilo bikes in sort of touring form. So with that, we carried on riding. This is us pulling into Lugano after we'd been in Monaco for the night. We'd gone all the way from Monaco straight up through towards Genoa, down to Genoa, and then up through Milan. No problems at all. Pulled up in Lugano. We had a night here in Lake Lugano, which is absolutely stunning. And I urge anybody to get down that way on your bikes and fully appreciate the area. The following day, we were going to make our way up through the Furka Pass to Switzerland, to Basel, to see my kids. But we were cut for time, so we rode there pretty quick, flat out. The bikes were absolutely fine. And when we arrived in Basel, one of my daughters pointed out to Simon that his bike was leaking. So, because it had lost quite a bit of oil, we were concerned that there was a problem. Hadn't really attributed it to the dropping the bike, because obviously it had been fine for 2 days up until that point. We phoned BMW Emergency Services, and what ensued then was, nothing short of a joke, frankly, over the next 2 days, which basically ruined the end of the trip. You'll see what happens with Simon's bike, but it's almost as if his karma rubbed off on me. Simon ends up getting recovered 2 days later. We're stuck in Basel for a day, which is fine. My kids were living there at the time, so we got to spend, some quality time with them and took them out to dinner and did some stuff with them, which was absolutely fine. So that killed some time, but we were stuck there more really through the complete incompetence of BMW European Emergency Recovery Services and BMW as a whole, more than anything else. After Simon was recovered, I actually rode home on my own that morning, the following morning, and said goodbye to him, got onto the motorway, filled up in the first petrol station that I came to. And as I pulled out of that petrol station, accelerating hard to take the 6-hour journey on to get to the tunnel at Calais, which I've done numerous times in a car. Usually it takes 9 hours, got through Stuttgart, over to Rheims and then north. You can do it in 6 if you pin it and make good progress. So I was ready to go and get back as quick as I possibly could, and riding on my own, it had sort of taken the edge off of the trip. And these are things that I want people to understand when you go on these sorts of tours. You need to have backups in in place, and you don't just rely on what's on something like BMW Emergency Services or a breakdown company to get you home. Make sure you've got some money in reserve, because if you're running on a budget, you need to accommodate for strange things happening, such as extra hotels, maybe flights, paying garages who perhaps don't have any connections to BMW or won't do it as warranty work, that sort of thing, or tyres, etc., etc. So you always need to make sure you've got your emergency credit card on you, because you don't know when you're going to use it. In a nutshell, basically I'd filled up my bike with what later turned out to be poor fuel. The bike went into limp mode, and I had to ride from just north of Basel all the way to Stuttgart in Germany to a dealership where I could be repatriated myself. And as a result of that, I had to ride, I can't remember how far it was, but it took me like 5 hours, because the bike would only do 45 miles an hour or something ridiculous. I got to the dealer. The dealer was superb. There was a girl there called Melanie, who I'll talk about shortly, but they let me change, get freshened up, took the bike in, said leave the bike with us. Any kit you leave in it will be secure overnight. We'll make sure it's safe, and we'll get you a car to the airport. BMW at that point actually really treated me completely differently to how Simon was treated, which is interesting. So there's my bike with a fault, which possibly, we didn't know was probably warranty related. I seem to get completely different treatment to Simon because he dropped his bike. So there's a lesson. If you have an accident or you do something to your bike that's possibly your fault, they don't treat you quite the same as if there's a problem with your bike, which is, I guess understandable, but hey ho, you're a BMW customer. If you end up in the shit and you're stuck and you're in a foreign country, it can be quite daunting, particularly if you're not worldly travelled. I can imagine that would have been quite a scary scenario. Now, Simon, he finds stuff like that particularly stressful. Not everybody is cut out to deal with stuff in those circumstances in the same way as perhaps I might be. So I found it all very easy to take on board and just one of those things. But for him, it was a complete nightmare. So day 6, we're in Basel. We've just been to see, we've had the kids here, my kids here today. We've been out to dinner with them. And when we parked the bikes up, we discovered that Simon's K1600 had a small oil leak. It wasn't a lot, but we couldn't really work out where it was coming from. It looked like the engine casing, potentially. So we've been faffing around with BMW International Emergency Service. And I've got to tell you, despite the fact they tell you it's a great addition and with the BMW warranty and everything else like that, what an absolute crock of shit to arrange to get someone to come out. And apparently Sundays, we don't really do things on a Sunday, so we may or may not get out to you. That's a 20 grand plus bike that's packed up or potentially can't carry on, and the so-called BMW International Rescue Warranty, whatever Dubry what's it, has taken best part of 4.5 hours to get someone here. Someone is here now and they've discovered a loose pipe and he's just pulled it and there's oil all over his hand. So I'm going downstairs to investigate. It's not looking good.
Opposite end.
So somewhere within here,
Das ist ein vent. Maybe it's the vent, so strange.
the vent.
Maybe. When you
Yeah.
this one from here,
Yeah.
the oil goes in the vent
Yeah.
and now goes
Because I showed them the video of what happened.
for me.
So here we are, day 7. Unfortunately, there has been a big problem overnight with Simon's bike. It would appear that some sort of oil breather pipe is blocked. We don't think it's the oil breather pipe either. We think that potentially there's some oil up in the airbox area. We had BMW emergency service on the phone for best part of 5 hours yesterday, and suffice to say their European help is pretty poor, and I'm hugely disappointed. It's more of a recovery sort of system, and they put the onus on you in resolving how you're going to forward plan getting home. They don't give you any answers, and certainly on a Sunday it appears that Sundays are a day, certainly in Switzerland, that you can't get anything done. So subsequently Simon's been left overnight worrying what he's going to do about his bike, but it's pretty much unrideable. The Motorrad dealer in Basel is shut on a Monday because they're open on Saturday, so they have Sunday and Monday off. And the nearest one is Strasbourg, which is 100 miles north of here, which is on our route home. However, the guy that came out last night was basically saying you shouldn't ride the bike, you should recover it to the nearest dealer, and they won't do a out-of-country recovery. At least last night they wouldn't, so we're stuck waiting to find out what's going on. It's getting to the point where I'm going to have to probably leave here without Simon, so I have to get home. There's some things going on at home that are pressing, plus I've got to be at work on Wednesday, and it's now Tuesday morning. I'm working tomorrow night. I'm working on Wednesday, so I've got to be home by tomorrow, and I do this journey regularly, and it's hard in a day in a car, so I'm splitting it between 2 days. And I'll be home on the tunnel tomorrow night, and then subsequently I'm working Wednesday night, so I need to get home. Simon's got some leeway, but he's going to technically be stranded here. They said that they may fly him home, and they may be able to repatriate his bike, but they made no assurances, and they gave no no sort of guarantees about anything they were going to do, which is ludicrous considering they harp on about when you buy these bikes that if you go on a tour, certainly through Europe, that you're going to be well looked after and taken care of to get home, etc., etc. Means that it's not a straightforward situation, and they're not going to just give him a hire bike or a hire car to get him home. He has to jump through a number of hoops first. Really, it would be sensible if they just said to him, we'll come and collect the bike, see what's what. It might take a week to fix or get parts or whatever's, to diagnose it, and we'll get you home. We're waiting on that this morning to see what they're going to do, so we'll keep you posted. But it's really not been a great experience, and I'm bitterly disappointed with BMW.
Basically, I've arrived at BMW Motorrad in Stuttgart. They've taken the bike. Awesome service. They're going to look after it here. What was made better was a lovely girl called Melanie here, who's actually English, on the reception desk. She took care of everything, let me go and get changed and washed, told me where to put the bike, sorted everything out, and she's getting me a taxi, hooked up. Awesome service. And not only that, this is a great dealer. Wait till you have a look at the showroom. So that's it, all sorted. Just waiting for a taxi to pick me up. Oh, brilliant, thank you. Wonderful, thanks Melanie, cheers, thank you. And Melanie, who's helped me out, who's an absolute saint. Her parents moved here 35 years ago. So she's English, but speaks perfectly good German, so she could do all the liaising for me, and she could understand what I was saying, which was the right result. So thank you, Melanie, I really appreciate it. And Stuttgart Motorrad, extremely impressive. Great customer service, didn't make me feel like a foreigner, stuck in a foreign country with a bike that didn't work. Did everything he possibly could to get me on my way. I only wish I could say the same for Simon's experience down in Switzerland. So Stuttgart Airport, a few hours there, do some vlogging, get some work done, and then home on the plane to see my nearest and dearest tomorrow. That is the end of the tour. Would I do it again? Yeah, probably would. I think this would be quite difficult logistically with a few people actually, over 7 days. It's a bit far. And in this heat, it's fatiguing. I've got quite good biking stamina from riding many miles in all weathers every year, and it was tough. I found it tough at times. So you have to bear that in mind, because fatigue leads to misjudgments, errors. You do things that you weren't perhaps going to do if you were fresh and awake, and you run the risk of hurting yourself and that sort of thing. So you have to take that into consideration when you do these sorts of tours. It was a bit far to do in 7 days. There's quite a lot of miles every day, so whilst we've had a good time and we're a bit pissed off it stopped short by a day, we were on our way home. So at least it's happened at the end of the tour, not the start. So with that, I'm signing out, and I'm just glad that Simon's got his bike recovered. For me, I'm quite laissez-faire about cars and bikes. I think to myself, well, you can just dump it and can always get a flight home from wherever you are. But it was hard for him. I think it stressed him out quite a bit. So sorry I'm not there to look after you, Si, and make sure you're okay, but I'm sure you're doing a decent enough job yourself, and it's about time you wore your big boy pants and fucking looked after yourself anyway.
So that was the end of the trip. A fantastic 7 days, marred by a bit of a disaster at the end, but I'd do it all again in a heartbeat. Thank you, Simon. You made it that extra bit special with your craziness. And here I am, back in the saddle in February. I'm going to start vlogging again. Had some personal reasons to come off the bikes back in October, which I'll explain a bit further on in the coming weeks. But it's good to be back. Please like and subscribe, and feel free to comment on the videos if you like them or you dislike them. I do my best. Take care.